Hello, traders, and happy Sunday. It is Sunday, January 26th. Steve Gans here. And I've got something I'm going to share with you. I don't normally do this. This is a little bit different, but I want to walk you through it. So, I often get asked the question of where do I find ideas of things to invest in? Well, I happen to be down at a grandson's basketball game this weekend in San Diego, and we spent some time out walking around the mall. And this company, Lucid, who I had heard of before, had a shop there, and I could test drive one of their cars. So I'm not actively looking for a new car. I tend to take my motorcycle most everywhere. My wife drives a Ford Expedition, but we've debated off and on about replacing that. I used to have a number of different Teslas. I've had Porsches. I've had Mercedes AMGs. So I like nice cars, but I don't drive one very much anymore. But anyhow, I decided, you know what? I'm going to take this thing for a drive. I have to say, I was absolutely blown away by the car. I do not own them. I am going to be buying their stock, and I'm going to walk you through why I'm going to do that here in a minute. So, in full disclosure, again, don't own any right now. But years ago, probably 6, 7 years ago, I had this same type of very jubilant feeling about a car company when I drove a Tesla for my very first time. And I ended up buying a Tesla within a couple days of that test drive. And I've owned three different Teslas over the years. And this car is, again, mind blowing from a number of different standpoints. It is a very nice luxury vehicle, but there's some levels of performance in here that, again, my head just went boom on the size of car that it is. It's kind of Mercedes, like mid-size Mercedes E-Class, maybe size, maybe a little bit bigger. But if you get their mid to upper level version of the car, it's 0 to 60 in around or under 3 seconds, which is crazy fast, and it can have a range over 500 miles. So, from my standpoint, this thing crushes Tesla because a Tesla never had a very, what I would call, plush interior, where this car has an awesome plush interior. And this one has, again, phenomenal performance. I would say it's a little bit larger, maybe, than the Model S, much more luxurious ride feel inside. So that's all fine and dandy. Companies can create fabulous products and still not get them to market properly, still not end up with a company making money. And that could happen here in full disclosure. But I want to show you the second piece of the puzzle. So I don't need a family sedan. If anything, we need something to haul grandkids around. Well, they are introducing the Lucid Gravity, which is a luxury SUV. Now, this thing has a lot of interior room to it, more than it looks like, because of the fact that there isn't a motor, or isn't a traditional ICE motor, combustion engine motor. There isn't a drivetrain that has to go underneath. This has motors at each of the wheels. They build their own motors. The technology that's used in their motors, they build the most efficient electric motor for EVs on the planet. Again, they fully designed their own from the ground up. If anyone out there is familiar with Formula One, well, there's also what's called a Formula One E circuit, which is electric Formula One cars. All of the cars in Formula One use the motor in these vehicles because, again, they're the smallest motors with the most power and the most efficiency, which is what allows them to get such long range out of those vehicles. So this particular car, it's going into production. I saw some pre-production versions of it. It's going into production here very soon. I put a deposit down on this yesterday. The company blows me away. I think this particular SUV, if it were up to me and we didn't have to haul grandkids around, I'd probably get the sedan. But this SUV looks every bit as cool. So let's get into the numbers, okay? And this is where it gets a little bit dicier, but this is one that I'm willing and am going to roll the dice on. So if we look at Lucid Motors when they came public back in well, I guess it was in late 2000. They shot up instantly up here into the $60 range, and then they sold off significantly. Then they rallied back. Then they sold off significantly. Of course, as you got into COVID and things, nobody was buying anything. They weren't able to do much work on building the cars. So that explains this whole trough. Then they launched some of their new cars. Sales were going really well. And so the stock shot up again. And since then, they've been spending a lot of money on R&D. Again, that R&D is not only on that new SUV vehicle, but they're also doing immense amounts of R&D on a slightly smaller, less expensive version of that SUV. So something that would probably compete with maybe Tesla's Model Y. But again, they develop all their own motors, drivetrains. They're all built in the United States here at a factory in Arizona. The company is based in California. So, but the product or the price of the stock sold off significantly, and it's been chopping down here very, very lowly priced. So that's a bit of a red flag. I get that. But a lot of this is because of the amount of money they've been spending in R&D, and I'm thinking that we're soon going to see that pay off when they start. So again, let's take a look more at some numbers. And I think many of you know I started using a product called forecaster.biz. I've also used over the years fast graphs, which I like a lot as well. But this forecaster.biz incorporates some AI components that I really like. And I'll just kind of show you that here briefly. I also have a link down below if you like this product. Use that link and go check it out. I believe that offers a free trial to you. But just as a quick summary, I can see this is the price of the stock here in blue. This is the net income. So their net income has certainly been dropping off. But let's look at sales. Their sales are really moving to the upside. And this is before the SUV comes out. So I think that SUV is going to have a much more dramatic impact in their sales. We can also see that aside from their first year where they had, great stock performance, they didn't have such great performance, but that's been kind of leveling out here a little bit. And I suspect this is going to go back to the plus side here this year. But probably the biggest thing that I want you to notice is look at mainly the buying of their stock. Now, this is a public investment fund here. This is actually Arabian Prince, and much of their money, their large investment fund where they invest in new technologies, what they consider to be the best new technologies around the world, they have invested very, very heavily in this company. So they were buying it when it was $10 a share. They bought 85 million shares, and they bought 265 million shares. And then they bought 100,000. Well, they got some sort of, I'm not sure why this was a zero value, probably some sort of what they call a warrant, where if they buy so many of these shares and then they get so many of these shares tossed in at a certain point. Same thing here. But then they're back buying heavily again here this last October. Again, pumping in, I don't know, you do the math on this, all this comes up to billions of dollars. Now, this is not a investment fund that makes these investments lightly. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe they were one of the large early investors in Tesla, as well as a number of other new technologies around the globe. So generally speaking, when they're diving in, they'll support this product until it makes it in the market. And again, if the product were not to where I thought it was going to make it, if I thought the product was dicey and maybe had some holes in it, where I personally felt like, yeah, this is going to be a fad or whatever, I wouldn't be looking at this for myself as an investment. But I will tell you from my perspective in driving the sedan, I couldn't drive the SUV yet, only see it, but in driving the sedan, the product was stellar. So based on that, I also want to come in now and I can do an AI analysis of the financial statement. So I click this one button, it goes through all the financials and it gives me a summary of the positive points and the negative points of this particular potential investment. And it talks about the debt levels, and it talks about the quarterly performance versus annual trends. It talks about the extensive amount they're spending in R&D, which I believe is going to ultimately prove to be very good for them and going to set them apart from some of the other EV makers out there. So I can look at, what's happening in the news, what's the latest. I can look at their competitors. Of course, it's going to show me Tesla and some other companies like that. I can see, who their suppliers are. I can look at the future prospects of the company. This will kind of give me a summary of the market conditions of the EV market overall. It gives me short-term prospects, mid-term, long-term prospects. It gives me the risks. So significant growth opportunities in premium EV market, its financial health, regulatory landscape, etc. Present strong opportunities, but notable risks. Okay. So need to keep that risk part in mind. And then it ultimately gives you a buy-sell recommendation. Well, it's only rating this in the short term as a 4 out of 10, and that's largely because of the sell-off it's had in the past couple of years. Longer term, it's rating it a little higher. And as you get out 2 to 5 years, well after the launch of this new product, it's giving it a much better rating than that. And again, gets into all of the details of that. In addition, if I want to actually see the finances themselves, I can come in here, I can look at the fundamentals, and this shows me some quick charts and graphs. But if I want to see the raw data, I can click here and it's going to give me all the raw data year in, year out of, what is their profits or loss? What is their operating expenses, operating income, etc. And again, I know these numbers are going the wrong direction right now. I fully get that. And so my buy is going to be sized accordingly on this. Now, the stock is currently trading at $2.79. So if this were trading at a higher price point, I would consider going in and buying Leaps, long-dated options. I'm not even certain if there is options in Lucid here. I haven't checked that yet, but it really doesn't make any difference because Leaps were going to cost me, $2, $3, $5, $10, whatever anyway, and those will decay out from under me, or the stock will not decay out from under me. So I will be coming in and I will be buying Lucid shares here this coming week. How many I'm going to buy, I'm not certain yet. Certainly I'll be buying a couple thousand, maybe a fair amount more than that. I'm not sure. And I will be prepared to add to this position once that SUV launches. I think we're going to see very good sales for it. As I was in the store down there, there were people streaming into the store like they used to do at Apple stores back in the day, wanting to know more about this SUV. So, and lots of people, they were sending them out on test drives in the sedan, and they were saying very favorable things. I've watched a number of YouTube videos on all of this technology. So anyhow, I'll certainly be buying into it at some level. Again, don't normally do this, but I've been asked the question enough of where do you find your ideas? And this was just an example that played out perfectly. The idea hit me in the face when I was walking around the mall. It intrigued me. I drove the car, went, wow, holy crap, can't even hardly believe this. Who do I write my check to? Put down a deposit, and then came home and instantly started looking at the stock. So I hope you guys find this of value and of some interest, and we'll see where it goes. Again, no guarantees here, of course. This is just me personally showing my process for going through with something like this. This, of course, is riskier than buying a Microsoft or Amazon or an Apple because of its lack of earnings at this stage, but because it has such a strong financial backer that has a history of putting the money they need to behind things to bring them to fruition. I have a comfort level that it probably isn't going to go bankrupt, but I'm also sizing small enough that if it did, oh well. And on the car, I'm also going to lease the car initially. So if I lease the car, company goes out of business, yeah, oh well, I turn it back in at the end of 3 years. If they remain in business and they do great things, I'll buy the car out at the end of the lease. So hopefully you guys find this of interest. Please like, subscribe if this was of interest to you. I know this is a little different type of video, so I'll be curious to see what people think of it. Take care.